The invitation calls for action. Think about if you were these disciples and Jesus said, "Follow me," you've got to make a response, right? You're going to either sit there and say, "Man, I'm not coming, I'm not going to follow you," or either you're going to say, "Yes, Lord, I'm going to go. It doesn't matter what it costs me. It doesn't matter what I face in life. I'm willing to follow you." And just as Jesus extended this invitation to these men 2,000 years ago, Jesus, I believe wholeheartedly, is right here in our midst tonight saying to each of us, including me, "Follow me. Follow me." And my prayer right now is that those two words are just like echoing in your head. Follow me. Follow me. Follow me. Follow me. So that the invitation is given, there is a response or a reaction required. Look at verses 20 and 22. And I'm going to read 19 again. "Then he said to them," he's looking at Simon. Simon's also Peter. He's looking at Simon, looking at Andrew, and he says this to them, "Follow me." The questions in life that you and I ask, catch this, are not on their radar. Notice they ask no questions in the Scripture. They don't say, what's it going to cost me? What am I going to be required to do? You know, what all is involved in that? None of that. They just simply respond. They hear the call loud and clear. They hear Jesus say, "Follow me." They don't examine any of the details because Jesus, quite frankly, has not laid the details out yet. He will later, and we're going to lay the details out over the next few weeks. But all Jesus says here is, "Follow me." Now you may ask, what is it that they gave up to follow Jesus? Let's break this down as we look at these two sets of brothers here. Notice, first of all, this is very, very important. Look at verse 20. They immediately. What does that mean? Without hesitation, without delay, without any questions asked, without any hesitation, they said, yes. They immediately left. Well, we see in verse 20 also that it says that they left their nets. Now, you may be saying, it probably isn't that bad, just to leave a net. All they left was a net to follow Jesus. That's not really giving up that much, is it?
It's their job and family.
It's their job, yes. The nets identify their occupation. It's what they did. So put the ball in our court here, and let's say that we're baseball players, okay? Or let's say that we're football players or we're band members, and let's say that there's some slight chance there that God's calling you to give up that to follow Him. Would you be willing to do that? To give up what you love to do, fishing, in my case, would I be willing to give that up to follow Him? They were willing to give up their occupation. They left their occupation. They left what they knew. They left what they spent their lives to become. They left their previous life. They left their old lifestyle, all for the sake of following Christ. They dropped their nets. They left everything they knew, and they were obedient to Jesus Christ and Him alone. Well, how about James and John? What did James and John leave? Look down at the next few verses, verse 21. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, in the boat with Zebedee, their father. Now, they were mending their nets. They were doing some repair on their nets. Maybe their nets had holes in them. I mean, they couldn't just run down to Walmart and get a new net, right? I mean, if something broke, they had to fix it. And their life depended on it. Hey, the next meal that they had on their table depended on whether or not their nets were in the proper order, prepared, and whether or not they were able to go out and do, what their life revolved around. So they were mending their nets, they were fixing their nets, they were repairing their nets. The Bible goes on to say, He called them Here we go, verse 22. And immediately. Did they ask any questions?
No hesitations.
No hesitations. Without delay, immediately they followed him. But look what they left. They left their boat. Ah. They left their boat. Now you may be saying like me, well, this is 2,000 years ago. It probably didn't have a motor on it. It didn't have any kind of electronics. It didn't have any of that stuff that we have today. No depth finder. No trolling motor. None of that stuff. Didn't have any of that. So it was just a wooden boat. So yeah, I could probably leave a wooden boat to follow you, Lord. But if you're calling me to leave my iPod, if you're calling me to leave my video games, if you're calling me to leave, all of my possessions, I don't know about that. That's asking a little much, right? No, it's not. And I can't answer for you tonight. Listen closely to this. I can't answer for you what God's going to call you to give up to follow Him. I can't answer that. I don't know. I don't know. I know that God has placed these individuals before me that I've been reading about and studying about over the past few months that have left everything, have sold their house, sold their possessions. They said, none of this is important. This is not what life's about. It's not about accumulating and gathering all these things that I can get. That's not what life's about. It's about following Jesus and living for Him. So I can't answer what He's going to ask you to give up. But I can say this, would you be willing to give up anything and everything for the sake of following Him? There's been little things in my life that I've had to give up, but I've not given up nowhere as much as most people have, some people have, to follow Him. I think about Amanda's mom and dad who said, hey, we want to be disciples of Christ. We want to follow Jesus. God's called us to this land. We're going to go. We're going to give up everything for the sake of following Him. We're going to give up material possessions. Now let's look at the last part of this, because this is going to probably rock somebody's world here. What Jesus says and what the Scripture says in verse 22. And immediately they left their boat and their father. What? They left their daddy? They left him fishing right there, high and dry on the boat. Know what the Scripture says? Did they love their father Zebedee?
Yes.
Absolutely. But you see, God and following Him and being obedient to Him is far more important than anything else. Everything else falls up under that. They left their father to follow Him. They left their father immediately and followed Him. Now, many of you will probably say tonight, I could never leave my mom. I love my mom too much. I could never leave my dad. Okay? And I'm not saying tonight that God's going to call you to do that. All right? But I do know families, I do know individuals that have done that. That have said, we're going to follow God. We're going to follow Jesus. He has called me. He has spoken to my heart and my life and called me to leave this place here in the United States and go thousands of miles away, and I'm going to follow Him. There's people that have done that. There's people that are doing that daily, giving up everything to follow Him. So I ask you the question, are you willing to give up everything if God calls you to do that? Are you willing to follow Him? Now, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Not everybody is called to full-time ministry. God's called me to full-time ministry. Was it challenging when that call came? Yes, it was. Because there were a lot of things that I had to leave to follow Christ. I hated school. I didn't want to go back to school. But I knew that in order to follow Christ and be obedient to what He had called me to do, I had to go back to school. We had to pack up our house and move. Once, twice, 3, 4, many times. Because God had called us to do that. Now this is small, I guess, in comparison to what we're looking at here, but I remember in 2007 when God had called us to leave Wake Forest, North Carolina, and go to Wilmington, North Carolina, Hampstead, North Carolina. That seemed like thousands of miles, didn't it, honey? How are we going to do this? All our family's in Clayton. All our family lives right here around us. Okay? We said, hey, regardless of what the cost, we want to be obedient to what God has called us to do. He may not call you to go there, but are you willing to go wherever He calls you to go? Although God has not called all of us to full-time ministry, to full-time service that way, here's where I really think we miss it. And that is that God has called all Christians, hear this, all Christians to be disciples. So in other words, being a disciple of Jesus is not optional. And when you break that down, when you stop and think about that, when you look at that, how can you say I'm a follower of Jesus when I don't ever go to church? Where I love Jesus and I'm following Him, but I don't ever read my Bible. How can we do that? Being a disciple of Christ is not optional for the Christian. If you're here tonight and you say, I've given my heart and my life to Jesus, but me following Him is something that's really down at the bottom of my list. I got all these other things to do. And I know you're busy. I know you're busy. I know just how busy teenagers can be. I know all the different things that even you have to juggle at your age right now. But let me prepare you when you get to be adults and parents. It just adds to the list, right? There's more things you have to do, more things you have to juggle. So I know you're busy. I know you've got things to do. But where is your walk with Christ? Where is your walk with the Lord? Where is your relationship with Him? And this would be cool. I've mentioned this before. If I could look in here tonight and see everybody's heart. I could look and I could say, well, that person says, man, they wish they could hurry up and get out of here. They don't even want to be here tonight. But I can't do that. Only God knows your heart. Only God knows the intents of your thought. Only God can read into your heart and your mind. So I say this. The invitation has been given by Christ. Secondly, we notice that there's a reaction. There's a response. And as I was thinking about this, I was reminded of modern technology, a cell phone. How many of you pick up your cell phone, let's say you go to have a meeting with your, a school teacher. That's a cheesy example probably. Or you go meet with somebody that the phone or nothing can distract you from that. So you take the phone and you kind of lay it over here on the desk and you put it on your side and you're in the middle of your meeting and the phone vibrates. You're like, man, I can't wait. Who's that that's texting me? I can't wait to find out who that is. You're like eager. You're like, will you hurry up? Yeah, can you hurry up and finish? I've got like a text here. I got to check, right? And you reach over and you grab that and you're like, hey man, what's up? We're gonna get together and play video games? Okay. All right? That type of response. When the phone goes off, when the phone vibrates, you respond that way. Now, I believe that that's true for some people in here tonight. All right? If you're in here tonight and you're eager and anxious to grab that cell phone when it goes off, let me just see your hands. Okay, all right. I didn't think I was like crazy here. Okay, I've done that too. But I say that to say this. I say all that to say this. When God calls you, when God speaks to you, and you know that it's Him speaking to you, do you respond that same way? Are you eager to respond to Him? Are you eager to say, yes, Lord, I'm here. What can I do? Yes, Lord, how can I serve you? Yes, Lord, how can I live for you? Or do you respond this way? Man, I got ball practice. Lord, tonight when I get home, if it's not too late, if I'm not sleepy, I'll talk to you then, Lord. I'll read my Bible tonight. Before I go to bed, I'll read it, if I'm not too sleepy. And then we'll pick up our Bible in the bed and we'll go. Okay, I want to hold my eyes open. Okay? So do we respond that same way?